So obviously, I'm very interested actually because one of the things that there hasn't been much discussion about today is the EU cookie directive, which is causing havoc and mayhem in our industry at the moment all around Europe. And I thought Steve and I were talking about this, and he sort of said maybe I spend a couple of minutes talking about and summarizing the situation. Someone sent me this link recently, and for all the best will in the world, I cannot summarize what's happening with the e-privacy directive in Europe as well as the guy who made this video did. So I'm just going to be, I'm glad I've got a video because everyone else had a video, so now I sort of feel like I'm sort of a cool kid as well. Hang on, let me just, right, so just, we got sound? It's a very sensitive mouse. Right, there we go.
Okay, so most European websites just became illegal due to a new law on cookies. If you're in Europe, your website is probably breaking the law right now. A cookie is a really common technology for remembering who you are between web pages. They allow things like login, preferences, tracking visitors, and ads to remember who you are and target stuff at you. Almost every website uses cookies and has done for years. The new law requires all websites to ask their visitors for permission to use cookies, say with a pop-up like this. Because nearly all websites use cookies, this could mean a lot of pop-ups. The law does allow an exception for some strictly necessary cookies. It doesn't allow cookies for measuring visitors to your website or advertising. If you haven't noticed, most stuff on the internet is free, and most of that is paid for by targeted ads. The law is meant to help protect people's privacy, but it comes over pretty heavy-handed. It's like banning all music to prevent another Justin Bieber album. So what happened? Back in 2009, the EU issued a directive banning the use of cookies without prior consent. A directive isn't a law, but it forces the member states to create their own laws. These were due by May 2011. Only 3 of the 27 countries met the deadline: Denmark, Estonia, and the UK, which only sort of half met it. The UK realised no one was ready, and on the day that the law came out, said they wouldn't prosecute anyone for another year, which did a lot for the blood pressure of panicked website owners everywhere. But it is still law, and anyone in the EU will eventually have to meet it. There are only 3 things websites can do. 1, you can ignore the law. 2, you can stop using cookies. Or 3, you can adapt to ask for permission. If you ignore the law, chances are you won't get sued first. That's not sound legal advice, but it's true. We expect most people will try to ignore the law as long as possible. You could stop using cookies. This isn't as easy as it sounds because most web technology uses cookies everywhere. So even if you want to, you probably can't turn them off yet, at least until some new software comes out. Or you could start asking for permission. If you want to keep on using cookies, you're going to have to. And that means getting in people's way. One option is a pop-up, which were once so popular that every single major browser blocks them automatically. Slightly better, an accordion, which slides down from the top of the screen like this. For a real example, let's take a look at the ICO. They're the body responsible for the new law in the UK. This thing appears at the top of every page, and it won't go away until you accept their cookies. Worst of all, the long question they ask assumes that visitors know what a cookie is, when surely the law is designed to protect those who don't, and it doesn't actually say what their own cookies do, which is track their own visitors. So essentially, the body responsible for telling us what to do has given us a fine example of what not to do on their own websites. In conclusion, the law is here. It probably won't kill you, yet. Solutions are painful but necessary. Or you could just move to another country. I'm Oliver from Silktide. I hope you found this useful. Please subscribe for more videos like this one.
It's genius. Yeah, so I mean, it is very, very concerning because cookies are a fundamental part of everything that, that this industry does. You know, whether you're a publisher providing tailored content, or whether you're an advertiser providing tailored messages. And you know, the slightly depressing thing is that nobody loses in this ecosystem. Content is free, advertising is better targeted. I don't want to see ads for feminine hygiene products. I just don't. My girlfriend doesn't want to see ads for cars. It adds a better targeted. Publishers can monetize inventory, as I said before, that they can't through their sales force. There's no, which publisher do you work for?
Haymarket.
Haymarket. Do you guys sell sort of
Lots of car.
Lots of cars. Do you ever sell sort of like the 3rd page on a through your sales force? No. Yeah. So that remnant inventory, which is such a horrible word, is actually highly valuable if you know about the audience, as I said. So for publishers, this is incredibly important to keep the internet free. So we go back around in a circle. A lot of what they talked about there in that video, we actually agree with. The principles we agree with, and the industry agrees with very strongly. Users should have information. No one's disagreeing with that. All those examples they showed don't provide any information. A pop-up that says this website wants to use cookies doesn't actually provide you with any information. And if it did, you wouldn't read it, trust me. And choice. So informed choice. Everybody agrees with that. So the industry is working, oops. No? Oops, there we go, right. So what the industry is working to is this. And sorry, it's a bit bitsy. I didn't have time to split it into 4 slides. But if you just sort of bear with me, this is step 1. So it's an ad. Is an icon in the corner, which is ad choices, right? You may already see some of this live on some websites, by the way. If you click on the ad choices piece, a little drop-down comes up out over the ad unit, so there's no need for anything else on the publisher site, which says, more information about opt-out options, what's interest-based advertising, and then the privacy policy of the advertiser. So you click on one of those things. Let's just say you talk about more information than opt-out options. You go to a site which is live now. You can check it out. There's all sorts of localized versions of this across Europe called Your Online Choices, which does information, right? It tells you lots and lots of stuff about what's actually going on, why you saw that ad, what's behavioral advertising, makes the very important point that this is not the same as blocking advertising. Those two things are different. Relevant message doesn't mean you get anything. Plus a very prominent area where you can opt out, which is here, where you can either opt out by provider. Lord knows why anyone would ever do that. As if I'm going to opt out of the Adconian cookies, but I'm not going to opt out of the. So there's also a big thing at the top, which of course most people we interact with, which is yes or no. I opt me out of everything or don't. Fascinating thing is that opting out means you have to drop a cookie. So there's all sorts of interesting technical issues with this, and that cookie has to be a super cookie, which is a cookie you can't delete when you delete your cookies, because otherwise you're implicitly forgetting that that machine has opted out of all this stuff. So, by its very nature, the enforcement mechanism for this whole thing means that you're breaking the law that was designed to anyway. So it's a mess. It's a mess. And this is what's been adopted in the US. There's still lots of legislation, which is, or lots of bills, as they call them, which are being proposed by various people in the US. Digital people with a lot of digital knowledge who are proposing these bills, like John Kerry, and people like that don't know much about digital. But they're looking to protect consumer privacy, and it's become a very populist argument. The industry here is working very hard to put in place a similar process so that when you're on a website, depending on whether you're in Europe or US, you get the same approach, which is very important. Right now, every country in Europe is adopting a different approach, which is a problem. Anyway, so that was a bit on e-privacy. I've lost the clicker. That's all right. So that's data. So lots of different data. We then use technology to basically make sure that we have the right ad targeted to the right person based on the data that we have. And I also mentioned inventory. Something like I can't remember the statistic, but something like 92% of ad dollars in the US go to the top 10, top 20 websites or something like that. It's a crazy statistic. You can't tell me that all the other websites there aren't valuable, don't have valuable audiences, right? So, we have many agreements where we use the Group M publisher relationships to access those audiences across a very, very broad range of inventory. And lastly, why are we doing this? And this is my 2 seconds of plug, which I promised to keep short. Who has not seen this slide? Wow, someone hasn't seen this slide. That's amazing. This is the Luma ecosystem. It's sort of the compulsory slide in every presentation that you go to any conference with. But it basically shows the ecosystem of digital display advertising in the US. And you can do a very similar slide in the UK and in Europe. And it has all the advertisers over here, and then the publishers who, of course, have the audiences over here. None of these companies have an audience, right? You don't go to, has anyone been to the Brightroll website? No? Okay. So, the publishers have the audience. This is the ecosystem of all the different data and technology companies that sit between advertisers and the publishers, and therefore advertisers and their audiences. So the strategy that Xaxis has is to reconnect the advertisers that the Group M agencies work with much more directly with the publishers by either partnering with selective parts of this ecosystem or building our own technology, and certainly by building our own data. Because we feel very, very strongly in the advertisers we work with feel very strongly that they need to control their data, and there's a lot of data leakage here and also a lot of value leakage. So just finally, Xaxis is, it's a build, they're annoying. A Group M company that helps our agencies and their clients use data and technology to reach and engage with audiences at scale. That's sort of what we do. That's it. Thank you.